the first thing that a video on Facebook needs to do is grab your attention, right? Not sell you, not get you to click to the link, not get you to get to the sales page and enter your email or whatever the fuck. All of that is downwind of the first thing, which is I need to compel you to pay attention first and consider the offer second.
Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Oliver Wolf from the Wolf Syndicate Coaching, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Ultimate Closer Show, where I take awesome closers out of their productive days to invest their time into you. Together we'll talk about sales theories and philosophies, as well as actionable strategies, tips, and techniques to make sure that you are closing more deals. And so today on our show, we have another very special guest. His name is Marc Coppola. Marc is a philanthropreneur and storyteller who is passionate about making the ROI of return on investment line up with the ROI or ripple of impact. And so I really love how Marc coined this term. It's very interesting. I've definitely never heard anything like that before. Now, his bio definitely does not do him justice, which is typical of Marc and his devotion to being very humble. And so on a more personal note, I've only known Marc for about 3-4 months. So it would have been November. We're now in January. And what I've found is, and what I've learned to appreciate so much about him, is his devotion to his investment in people, right? So that's how he really lives his life, is he invests his time, energy, and effort into people to see them grow. And from that, make an impact accordingly, right? So every time he invests a minute into me, I then invest a minute into others, and he has now had a ripple of impact. And so it's only been a few months, but in the time that I've known him, he's already helped me as a mentor and a coach, and is quickly becoming a friend of mine. And I'm just really excited to have him here on the show, because I know he's going to be able to share some really interesting and deep philosophies and ideas, not only on sales, but just life in general. So welcome, Marc, to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the kind words in the introduction.
I'm sure you're blushing now.
yeah, possibly.
So
that's great.
Yeah. So diving in, I always like to start obviously with the actual story, right? So everyone's got a different story, a different sales journey or entrepreneurial journey. And getting into sales is always very interesting. Most people, it kind of just falls upon them. You're not really born into sales, kind of thing.
Sure.
So let's just sort of hear your journey. So whether it's entrepreneurial or sales, just what's sort of your story, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many parts of my story that I could talk about, and it encompasses everything from starting an ecological movement and taking on a piece of land here in Montreal and turning it into the school I wish I could have gone to, both physically and digitally. I could talk about all the stuff that I did when I went to my first business, which was an indoor skate park, and all the things related to that. I mean, there's a million things that I can talk about, but
right.
I think in the world of sales, in the world of understanding the motivation of people and what really people are looking for, my sales journey begins not in my first business, which was around an indoor skate park, but really trying to build a lounge, which was for me a huge project, and it's still a project, by the way. It just kind of shifted from a lounge to building a school, but it really encompasses the same ideas, the same philosophies, and an ever-evolving philosophy, let's say. But the underlying philosophy that I kind of learned in the world of sales is that my highest excitement, the thing that I'm looking to create, is a win-win-win scenario. And
so you said triple win. I'm very interested about that.
Triple win. Yeah, triple win. So the win is the win for me. Not going to forget about me. I mean, if I'm doing something and if I'm creating some kind of scenario, obviously I'm looking to win. I think that's inherent in everyone, particularly in salespeople. Second thing is the win for you. I'm actually trying to make the person who I'm working with or trying to create with win as well. I'm really, truly looking out for their best interests. And I'm actually starting in that position because I say, I know what I want, or I know what it may be exciting to me, but I have to make sure that it aligns up for them. And the third win is the win for the planet. How does somebody else win? How does the greater vision, the greater picture win? How are we winning full stop so that all the forces of the universe are behind us? And that might sound super woo-woo, but it's really not. It's truly a way of thinking, because if I put myself in in a different position, a third party view of the deal. I really want to make sure that this makes sense overall from another perspective. And that doesn't always have to be like an ecological win. It just needs to mean that like, yeah, this makes sense. This is moving humanity forward. This is good for the culture, for the community that I'm part of.
Well, I like what you said. Sorry to interject, but what you said is like, so win for me, win for you, and win for the planet. And I think typically when people hear the planet, they instantly go to ecological, right? Like something like that.
Yeah.
But then you sort of divert, and I want to emphasize this, is that just that it at least has a win for someone outside of the sales conversation you're currently having. That's very interesting. And even as soon as you said that, I almost started, like, I took myself out into, like you said, that third perspective and thought like, interesting. Like, how else could I have a sales conversation such that it impacts others? And even just thinking that way makes me almost approach the conversation differently.
I'll give you a perfect example. Okay. Ripple of impact is measured in, look, if you and I do a private coaching session, right? I'm impacting you directly, but if we record it like we are right now, all of a sudden we're impacting other people. So this created the third win. We're doing something that other people could potentially benefit from. They don't have to, they get to choose to if they do or they don't. But at the end of the day, the opportunity was created for those people. And that ripple of impact goes beyond just what I'm doing for you or what you're doing for me. So I feel like there's some simple ways that we can make that happen, but we tend to forget the importance of that. And so my sales journey, you know, to make a long story short, one of the biggest things that happened is my goal was to build a lounge, and I went to the bank and got this loan. And the day I showed up to get it, there was somebody who wasn't there to be able to sign it. So I had to show up the next week. And long story short, the financial crisis of 2007, 2008, like that whole like time frame hit literally between the week that I was supposed to get the loan, which was pre-approved for $250,000 and me going and like literally getting the money. And I was a 19-year-old at the time, trying to open up, in their eyes, a bar and a restaurant, right? But realistically it was a lounge and within the skate park and all this stuff. Okay. And long story short, they're like, oh, why don't you come back next week? And then next week turned to next month, and next month turned to never. And the biggest thing that happened is that at that moment I was devastated. I mean, I had done all the work. I built all the business plans. I like, we're already paying the rent, the overhead of the space. Like we already had like everything in motion. I had done so much work, you know, for an entire year on this project, and I had turned the skate park around, and it's a long story, but the idea is the biggest thing that happened is I started going to all the angel investors and trying to show like, hey, I'm ready for this and we can do this. And this is like, my community in this town will love this. It will be eaten up and it will work. And I'm, by the way, I was proven right. A bar and a bunch of stuff ended up opening up a couple of months and years later, and they all killed it. Long story short, but the biggest thing that I learned out of it is not only that, see, the thing that I was thinking is that I needed the money, but I didn't need the money. I actually needed what the money did for me, right? See, we think about, oh, I need a sale. No, you don't need the sale. You need a customer to do well, and you just need the exchange to also benefit you and benefit them, and have them understand the value of that exchange. But you're assuming that value is in money, right? But it's not. Your sales isn't about your sales. Your sales is about what it does for you. What are you going to do with the money, right? Is it that you're going to grow a business? Are you going to hire people? Are you going to build a school? Or are you going to give it to planting trees? I don't know what you're going to do with the money. You might go buy a Ferrari if that's what you want to do. And I don't care. The point is, you're doing something with the money, right? And that's what I actually needed. That's what I actually wanted. So I started to think, well, what's the win-win between people who, in the financial crisis, for example, are losing their businesses, they're losing their restaurants because, you know, nobody's eating out, or people eating out a little less. So a bunch of restaurants start closing, and then they all have the equipment that I need, right? But I don't have money, and they need money because the bank is hassling them for money. So I found an equipment reseller who would buy up all the equipment from a restaurant. And I would go on Craigslist and literally search time after time after time, like one after the other, after the other, after the other, and find that they had a piece of equipment that I need, like a microwave or the silverware, the pots and pans, or the stove, or whatever it is. I'd walk in and I'd say, look, I'm going to find you a buyer because that's what you need. And what I need is that microwave over there. But if I find a buyer for all your equipment, that microwave, it's mine. And they're like, great. So I created value because they needed to sell all their equipment quickly. And Craigslist, I don't know if you know, it's full of a bunch of, like, you know, it's not the easiest place to sell a bunch of stuff. It really takes a lot of time, and You get a lot of people jerking
back
around
and forth, and oh my god, yeah.
So for me, I brought in one guy who was super serious and bought up everything. So I created an enormous amount of value and I bailed him out. But I helped them build up. So slowly but surely, I got all the equipment to build this lounge. One after the other. I did this, like, I counted at least 50 times, right? So 50 times over, I would go on Craigslist every day, boom, 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 transaction, like one after the other. So I created something out of nothing. I created value, not out of the fact I had money, not out of the fact I had a marketing thing. I just saw an opportunity between one win for one person, one win for me, and then one win for the greater vision, which is, to me at that point, building a lounge, supporting the bank, supporting the entrepreneurs. Like, everyone in this scenario, the restaurant owner, myself, the equipment buyer, we all won. The equipment buyer was super happy. He's like, you're doing all my homework for me. All I need to do is show up and look at the equipment and buy what I want. You know what I mean? He's like, this is amazing. You're working for me for free. You know what I mean? And so everyone was stoked, and we all got to get what we wanted. Yeah. So I think
super. I want to just interject on that. So super entrepreneurial, like very, very much like basically the epitome of what it means to be an entrepreneur is to solve problems, right? That's really like what you did. Now, I also want to then bring it also to sales again, is like really what you're doing is, and what you need to do in sales is figure out like, what's the problem that I'm seeking to solve, and then drive that home, right? Drive the solution all the way home, deep into the individual's mind, and have it so that without an inkling of a doubt that you're the one who has the solution.
Yeah. Yes. And I'll add one more layer.
Please do.
Most people who are watching this to get better at sales. Number one, there's only one question that I can ask you that determines whether or not you are going to get better at sales or not. Beyond all the techniques and all the things like series of yeses, I get it, NLP, you could study whatever the hell you want. I've done it all, by the way. I've learned all those things. I understand them. I could put triggers and little clicks, and every time you smile, I do a little snap like this, and eventually I snap and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yeah, those are all hacks. Those are all things that you can learn and do, and they're important and they're strong. But you know what the number one thing you can learn is? What are you actually selling? Number one question. What are you actually selling? What the hell are you truly selling? Now, understand, do you truly believe in it? Do you really understand it? Do you understand its value and what it changes? And more importantly, rather than you understanding it, do you think the person you're selling to, you're speaking to, understands, and are you communicating that to them, or at least revealing that to them by asking them the right questions in some way, shape, or form? Okay.
Love it.
But I want somebody to like sit here for a second.
Here's what I want to dive into. Actually, I'd love to get.
What are you selling?
Yeah, I'd love to actually get into that because I feel like a lot of people are going to say like, well, I sell contracting, I sell building a deck, I sell coaching, right? So what do you mean? Because you did this to me, right? And it was a very interesting experience. So how do we actually? This is how he sold me. Yeah, how does someone actually sit there and ask themselves, well, what do I actually sell beyond the obvious first layer, right? How you dig into those layers?
So let's go. Like my test is, well, why do they want that, right? Like if you sell coaching, if you sell building a deck, if you sell their windows being clean, right? Whatever you sell, why do they want that? Right? So if you're selling your people's windows being clean, they don't want their windows to be clean so much as they want to see outside their windows without interruption. That's what they actually want. What they want is connection to, look, I look outside right now, it's a beautiful snowy landscape. And I walked down this morning and I opened my blinds. I didn't open my blinds because of anything more than I wanted more sunlight. And I also wanted to see outside because I'm connected to nature. I feel connected to the snow that is out there.
Yeah, you didn't open the blind because it was a clean window.
No, I didn't open the blind saying, oh my God, my windows are so clean. I wanted to see through the window. That's why I have windows, to see outside and to let the light of outside come in. So what I wanted is connection to nature. So if I go further down the needs ladder, what I asked for, the service or how I got my connection to nature is, number one, I bought a window. Number two, I kept it clean and I kept a view of nature in the background. So all those things, all those decisions lead to my core inherent want. So ask yourself why. Why are you doing what you do? Because if you can connect to your buyer, your potential lead, whatever you want to call them, to the person that you are storytelling to, by understanding what they truly want, you can speak from that place, and that place holds way more value, right? In my mind, what would I pay for my connection to nature?
True.
Shit, it's very different than if I were to Google, the cost of window washing and then compare a bunch of different people based on arbitrary things like, do I like their logo? Do I trust this person? Do I like this person? Well, I don't care. If I look in Yellow Pages or if I look up on Google, there's no real difference. What I care about is, do I have my connection to nature? So if you come in and you understand that, and you say, look, I truly believe that the best way for you to have your connection to nature is that you wash your windows. But by the way, I'll apply this little coating so you don't have to pay me to come back ever again. Because the truth is that when your windows get dirty, you don't call me right away. You end up suffering because your windows are dirty for a long time. You know what I mean? Because you forget about it and it's not your priority, blah, 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 blah. But if I add this little extra coating, it costs you an extra $100. Maybe you don't have to call me as much, and that's really good, right? Is that what you really want? Yeah, great. Boom, you just upsold me. Done. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, if you can connect, and I know that's such a simple example, but
it's very relatable for sure. 100%.
Totally. And so many coaches, so many people out there are like, I'm a coach, I sell coaching. I'm like, no, you don't. You sell what coaching offers people, which is support, accountability, whatever. Like, you're offering something else. They want the result. Give them what they want. You know what I mean? Like,
beyond, because you said like it's accountability, it's this, it's that. It's beyond that though, right? As you were just about to go into, and as you mentioned to me again, as much as I give them a weekly call and the accountability and assignments and all that kind of stuff, that's not really what they're buying. It's not what they want, right? Like you're about to say as well, give them what they want, which is that result. They don't want coaching, they want result. They don't want a contractor. They want a place for them to, sit around the fire with their family and be able to kick their feet up after work, right? What is it that they're genuinely getting out of your service or product?
Exactly. And so, what I think is that's empowering, because here's an example. You and I, if I sell you on a coaching package and my package is, well, we have to speak for an hour every week on this day of the week. No. What happens if we get on the call and in 15 minutes, I give you a piece of tidbit that all of a sudden sparks your interest and inspires you 15 minutes in, right? And now it's like, look, we have nothing left to say, right? But because I sold you on this specific package, now I have to stay on the phone with you for 45 minutes and you have to stay on the phone with me for an extra 45 minutes for what purpose? Right? For what purpose am I associating what I sold you with a specific amount of time or specific unit of something? It's not that way. So sometimes I'll get on the call with you and it will be on for an hour and a half. Sometimes I'll get on the call with you and 5 minutes in, I will have hit something and then it's like, hey, I think we've got enough here.
Epiphany.
Work on that. Exactly. Just go work on that, because that's what you're really looking for. You're really looking for the breakthrough that moves you one step closer to what you want to do, the breakthrough that allows you to hold that accountability, put the time and energy into it, and work on your own business, your own self, your own brand, whatever you want, whatever you're building at that moment. But the idea is that's what you really needed. Mm-hmm. So rather than try and sell based on a specific transaction, I look to say, did I create the value? Is the value there? Is the breakthrough there in, let's say, in coaching in this case? Great. If it's there, done. I have coaching, literally I have consulting and coaching clients where sometimes we get online for 15 minutes. They'll pay me the same rate that I would have done for an hour-long call, because I didn't sell my time. I sold my wisdom, and that's different. And that's so different. So fundamentally, the entirety of everything I do, from my website to my proposals, to my packages, to the contracts I sign, to the payments that I receive, are not based on my time. They're not based on the unit of transaction. They're based on a deeper layer of transaction, which to me tends to favor me, and it also tends to favor them, because I'm saving their time too. You know what I mean? Like, look, if they had the breakthrough, they had the breakthrough. Who cares how much time it took? And so that's what I focus on, the result. I sell the result. And most of the time, by the way, when it comes to coaching, people really, like, the best coach in the world sometimes is just a mirror.
Yeah.
I'm selling you. I'm selling you. If you believe in you, all I'm trying to do is get you to a point where you are
embodying
self-doubt. You're embodying the person that you want to be. You are becoming the character, Oliver Wolf, that you want to be, right? And not that you are it. But sometimes we need reminders. Sometimes you wake up in the morning, or you just binged on Netflix all day, and you're just like, man, I feel like a piece of shit. And then every once in a while, somebody comes into your life and says, nah, man, you're doing great. Like, get back on the horse and let's get going. And that's valuable. It's valuable to have those different pieces. Sometimes, remember, you have to connect to what you're selling. You have to know what that is.
Yeah. So I actually want to digress a little bit and say, like, sort of highlighting what you said a bit, which is, don't get too specific on the how of what it is you do, and more on what it is that the result actually is. And so we went into like the coaching as an example, but I'd love to also take it into like sort of, again, like, because it's interesting, right? I feel a lot of people that are in, again, construction or some kind of service business, they're naturally a little bit more analytical kind of thing. And so they might think like, but how can I sell something without telling them the dimensions and the tools we're going to use and the this and the that and the this? So how would you sort of speak this fundamental truth to someone who's stuck in that sort of a mindset?
Well, it's simple. There's two ways to, like, okay, what's the difference between $100 bottle of wine and a $10 bottle of wine?
Basically nothing.
Assuming that they're both grown by the same grapes at the same vineyard in the same way, they're processed in the exact same way. But one I put a beautiful label on and I tell a story. The other I just put a normal label.
Yeah, put it in the
just put it on the shelf. $10, $10, $100. What makes it worth 100 times more?
The story you told.
Well, because the wine, the cork is not just about getting drunk. It's not just the result of that. It's also it's the allure. It's something else, right? Because look, if you're always competing on the analytical data, there's always going to be somebody out there who's going to find a way to be cheaper than you, or better than you, or closer to you, or maybe they get a cheaper deal, or this, that, or the other, or maybe they're not cheaper, but they're just going to sell it as cheaper, and then they're going to upsell later and do whatever the fuck, right? Mm-hmm. Excuse me, 1 second.
Glass of water. Here we go. I'll join you on that.
You need your hydration. So the idea is that at the end of the day, somebody who's buying a home from you, or somebody who's buying renovations for their house, or somebody who's buying all these things, what they're really buying, what you can compete on that nobody else can compete on, is your service. How are you showing up for the clients? When they call, do you make them feel comfortable? Do you make them feel heard? Do you listen to them? And do you active listen to them sometimes? Like, hey, you said that you feel like maybe it would be uncomfortable and you're worried about the timeline. Well, man, I feel like, yes, the timeline is sometimes a very tricky thing, but over the last 7 years of experience of me in this industry, we found that when communicating with the clients and really planning things out and, measuring twice and cutting once, we do a really good job at keeping those timelines together. Now, I understand that this is your concern, so I'm going to do my best to make sure that these things are in place. And if there's any point that you feel the timeline might be off, please communicate to me, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? The idea of like showing up, listening to the people's concerns and understanding what that is, compete on service. What makes an iPhone better than an Android? It's not necessarily anything. And people would argue that Androids are better than iPhones. I don't care. The point is that one is sold at a different price than the other, only based on the marketing and the perception of those things. And then the services that those things render, right? The reason I buy an iPhone is because the services between my MacBook and my iPhone work together. So the idea of like, there's other reasons beyond the tech and analysis hardware element. I'm buying ease. I'm making sure that, my AirPlay works from this thing to that thing. That's what I'm buying. I'm buying convenience. I'm buying other things. So if you can see the layers of the purchase, the layers of decisions that go into any decision, you can support people making that decision from a true place of service, focusing on serving them and then focusing on competing on service, then you can be the $100 bottle of wine versus the $10 bottle of wine, because they are very similar, right? Like, yes, some companies, some products are better than others.
Different distilling thing. They put it in a specific barrel. They do this, they do that.
Sure. Yeah. Marketing. Okay, great. Yeah. Like, that's storytelling. That's what you should compete on. Sell that. Sell your story, because if you can sell your story, that's the difference. That is the actual difference between a $100 bottle of wine and $10 bottle of wine, is the story.
Yeah. So actually, let's dive into that a little bit, because I think it's very, I've never heard someone address themselves as a sales professional as a storyteller. It's in your bio, and you've mentioned it a couple of times now, many times now. So I'd love to dive into that. Like, what does it mean to be a storyteller when you're a salesperson? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah, well, I think the first things first is, I'm not a storyteller because my goal is to sell people on something. I'm a storyteller because I believe it is the fastest, best way for me to communicate my ethos, who I am, and some kind of shared common value or shared common perspective that we can both ponder together. My goal isn't to convince people. My goal is to compel people. And if they feel compelled by the story, then they get to join it. And if they don't join it. Now, stories are everything. The world's biggest religion is money. Okay. This is, the next biggest religion is all the regular religions that are out there in some of these different ways. And regardless of the facts, regardless of what religion you're from, at the end of the day, people are at this point, because it all happened in history, or if it did, right? At this point, we're buying the story. We're buying being a part of something sometimes that's bigger than us. We're buying something that makes us feel like we're part of a community. We're buying whatever it is that enables us to feel some level of happiness or exchange, or some level of being seen or heard or felt, inclusion or exclusion sometimes, right? Sometimes I'm not part of something, I'm against something else. It's like how many people vote for one politician, not because they like that politician, but just they hate the other one, right? So the idea of inclusion or exclusion, all those things, we're all buying a story. And those narratives matter because people believe them. If we say something enough, it's literally statistically proven that if you repeat a lie enough times and it comes from multiple locations, multiple sites, it becomes true. It literally becomes true because the confusion between what is true and what not true and our perception of reality is we're not that good at perceiving reality in many of the different ways. So there's so much to be had around understanding that there is more. There's like a deeper layer to how we perceive our world, right? And it's not about objective truth, it's about how people feel. And so stories are the fastest way for me to transfer wisdom, the fastest way for me to impact people, the fastest way for me to compel people to feel potentially a particular perspective, or at least consider it, and give them the opportunity to potentially change their course or not based on the information that you told them. And my goal in telling stories sometimes is just to inspire, just to motivate, just to make people perceive something and be like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't be drinking water out of a plastic bottle, or maybe I shouldn't be doing this, or maybe I should be doing that. And so storytelling is the fundamental way that we've transferred knowledge and education forever. It's literally the fastest way for us to remember things. And that's why we love movies and Netflix and entertainment, because we love the story. And we love everything from the train wreck, right, that we watch on the news, all the way to the beautiful story of a soldier coming home and seeing their dog for the first time in years, right? Those are stories. We follow stories. And rather than trying to compel people to like pay attention to your brand or whatever your offer is, your funnel, if you tell a story that's actually compelling, that's actually interesting, then people will willingly not only pay attention, engage, but also potentially share. So upgrade your marketing and your sales to being real storytelling. And I think you're going to see a very different result. I think your goal isn't to just sell all the time. I mean, maybe it is, and maybe that's why you're listening to a sales podcast. But if you realize that storytelling goes way further, I think you'll see a different result.
Yeah, and I think what I'm trying to attract as an audience is not necessarily people that just want to sell, but people who understand that like sales is a way to the freedom that you desire, or a way to make an impact, and so on and so forth, because sales is basically in another way communication, in another way storytelling. And like you just said, right, storytelling is the way to make an impact on the world. So one thing that I wanted to digress to once again that you were talking about when you were in storytelling was you talked about how storytelling is also a great opportunity to help people change their paradigm or their view or their perception on things, right? How do you prepare someone to be open to listen? And I want to emphasize this just because a lot of people, right? So many people have so much difficulty believing that, hey, you know what? I might be fucking wrong, right? It's a very challenging thing. So you as a storyteller, it's part of your job to make sure that their minds are ready to receive. So what are some maybe strategies, techniques, I don't know, whatever it is, what do you do to make that possible?
I think it starts with my intention, which is that my intention at first, I'll give you an example. The first job of a video on Facebook, rather beyond the message and the CTA and all the different things, is I always focus on what's the first step and then the series of steps that need to happen for a decision to be made, right? So we think about sales, a series of yeses is a way of making a series of connections that eventually lead to a potential yes at the end when you're asking a yes or no question, right? Like, hey, do you want to sign up for this, or do you want to buy this, or whatever, right? So the first thing that a video on Facebook needs to do is grab your attention, right? Not sell you, not get you to click to the link, not get you to get to the sales page and enter your email or whatever the fuck. All of that is downwind of the first thing, which is I need to compel you to pay attention first, to consider the offer second. But the first step kind of is always the piece that needs to flow. So I don't go in thinking, how am I going to create a way that these people are going to listen? I ask myself first, what do they want to listen to? What are they interested in? What is there for them already? Why are they clicking on this topic anyway? And by the way, some people click with the intention of hating, right? How many people like watch something and are like, oh my God, I hate this person, but I have to watch it. They're compelled to hate something. So understanding the motivation of what they are doing, you have the opportunity of understanding psychology and understanding, okay, I can trigger this. I could trigger the connection that people already have, or an association that people already have that is already there. And by rather than attacking the way that they are seeing something, by understanding and playing with, hey, there's this side of what you feel and the way you feel about it, and just literally presenting, without trying to convince or compel fully, you're presenting another alternative. And you not only are giving a rational appeal to why that alternative might make sense, but also acknowledging the emotional appeal of where they currently are and how difficult potentially the transition might be. By acknowledging where somebody is, rather than saying you're wrong and you should be here, I actually believe that you have opened the door to understanding that you went from an I and you scenario, right? Where it's like, I feel this and you feel that, and it's an us versus, me against them kind of world. It's a us scenario where it's like, hey, look, I understand that you feel this way and I feel this way. And here's the truth. We both want something, right? So you're seeing this play out in America right now with security of America, border security, all that stuff. One wants a wall. The other wants different technologies and wants a political standoff. They want Trump to go get out. That's what they really want, right? So, but they all want the government to open, right? They all need the money to happen in this government shutdown. So the truth is that the person who plays the us, well, look, we both want this thing to happen, is going to win the minds of the political people. So even if you're a Republican right now, but you're hearing some people say, hey, like we all want the government to open, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, everyone has to align with the ultimate truth, which is something that we all can see, the common ground, right? So inherently pointing to common ground before trying to point to uncommon ground is going to be helpful. And understanding that the first thing you need to do is compel them to pay attention. Then you have to compel them to understand that maybe you are more similar than you are dissimilar sometimes. And then you could talk about your dissimilarities. And rather than convince or compel, you could give them an opportunity to see the rational facts, but also appeal to their emotional element of it too. And I think emotions speak way louder than anything else. I mean, how many people show up to a conference of an amazing, let's be real, right? If there's if David Guetta was to host a massive concert, the number of people who would go to be a part of the music and listen to the music and show up to this concert is so different than the way that people show up to a political rally, right?
Right. Even though it could be the same people.
Could be the same people, but the way that people show up and the commonality that people would have in that crowd is so different. So inherently, there are certain things that bring way more people together. There's way more common ground in music because everybody listens to, a number one hit. Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, an independent, it doesn't matter. If you like the music, you like the music. So sometimes understanding that you don't have to make a statement on everything. Not everything has to be a punchline or a stab or some way convincing. You have an opportunity to create commonality. You have an opportunity to put yourself in their shoes and understand their perspective. And that's really humbling.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I think that was a really great way to answer the question of like how to open someone's mind is find common ground, right? Seek to understand, come be on their side before you seek to show them your side. And again, not showing them in a way that's like, I'm trying to attack you or convince you, but just like, hey, let's look at it this way. What do you think?
But actually understand. Meaning like, don't just try and understand so that you can then sell them later.
Yeah, don't exactly.
That. Like, actually be willing to be curious about their perspective and understand.
Totally. Yeah, and this comes back to the idea of like, if you're acting it out, like acting like you understand versus actually understand.
Yes.
Although people may not consciously know that you're doing it, they'll subconsciously, intuitively know that you are. And again, come bring it back to that, but just on a grander scale as well. So one, you'll lose a sale, but two, you'll lose yourself really in the end, because you're never really being anything by acting like you understand versus actually truly understanding. Right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Cool, man. Very cool. Awesome. So I don't know if, did you have any other sort of like random talk, like coming to the show, did you have any thoughts as things you'd want to go over at all, or?
My thought right now is like, how can I ask you a tough question?
Classic coach. You got to turn the question around.
Yeah. I mean, no, I don't have a particularly difficult question or anything specific. I mean, I wonder, first of all, I'll invite that anybody who's listening to this, if you have questions, just tag me in the comments below, and understand that, we're always here to answer these different questions. I'm always compelled to show up and answer any questions particularly. And some of you might, feel a particular amount of shame, and you're like, I don't really know what I'm selling, or I don't know why I'm selling it. Be honest with yourself. I mean, just ask yourself that question. If you're having trouble doing it, let us know in the comments. That's what this is for. Particularly the group that you created and all that stuff. This is what this is for. You created a way of serving these people. It's people who see themselves as sales professionals or whatever it is. But yeah, no, I don't have a particular topic. I mean, I'm happy to answer any question.
Well, I do. So obviously one of the questions I love to ask all of the people that I get onto the show is, what's an exclusive sales secret? And although you've divulged quite a few, but what's an exclusive sales secret that you can share with the audience to guide them on their ultimate closer journey?
I think it goes back to the thing that we just spoke about, which is how can you truly relate to the person on the other end, and then how can you be as honest as possible about what you are putting in front of them and how you're showing up in those conversations. Because I truly believe, like, there's two things that I feel people lack. The first thing is that people think that everyone knows what they do, right? I've been an entrepreneur for 12 years now. My mom still asks me what I do. Okay. And it's like, it's written in everything, and all social media platforms, all that stuff. And in many ways, and at the exact same time, not everybody fully understands what I do. And remembering that you can repeat that you can refine that, you have to explain that people have to grasp that. And as much as you think it's obvious to you because you say it all the time, there's new people all the time, and people forget. They forget. I mean, it's like, how many people have you met and you forget their name? You know what I mean? Like, you can't even remember their name. So people are not as astute and tuned in as you think they are about yourself, and the world doesn't revolve around any one of us, right? So remembering to tell people what you do and the services that you provide and the value that you offer is super important. The second thing is, I think that anybody who is in sales should be looking at going through the ringer of their own sales cycle, understanding the perspective of somebody else who would be receiving this, and then as much as possible receiving feedback and listening to that feedback, because whether it is true or not, if people perceive something or perceive a gap, right, that is being felt. And paying attention to that, paying attention to the way that people are perceived, not truth, the perception is more important than the truth in some ways. And that will enhance your capacity to do all those different pieces. Now, do I believe that people should have a sales script? No, I believe they should make one and then forget it. Right? I believe that they should they should go through the process of understanding all these different pieces.
Yeah, it forces you to figure it out, for sure.
Yeah, and in my personal opinion, they should strip it all away and then speak from the heart, right? They should speak from the place that actually communicates the value that they are proposing, and speak from a place of deep knowing and knowledge, because people feel when they're being spoken to in a script versus being spoken to like a normal human being in a normal interaction. So now it doesn't mean that scripts don't work. They do. I mean, there's a ton of people who are also in a state of mind that their brain is just kind of shut off and they're willing to just transact, right? So there's many people who will crush it at sales based on very simple transactions like, hey, this is better than your current alternative or your current opportunity, so why not take it? And then people are like, yes, of course. And, and they take it. So there's a very simple decision-making process that people make. But to go to another layer, to go to a high degree of integrity and a high degree of real value exchange that is also enriching to you, which is, how do you show up when your script isn't there? How do you show up as a salesperson when you're truly just being vulnerable and expressing it from the place of knowing your material, knowing your numbers, knowing what you need to do, knowing the objections, knowing how to handle them, knowing how they truly are handled, and then just being and leading with honesty. Like I honestly have, there's nothing more compelling than being honest. There's nothing more compelling than just expressing what you truly believe. And from a coaching perspective, and even from a sales perspective, I would say there's nothing more compelling sometimes than saying, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that can make me be more real and appear and actually be more honest than every once in a while being like, you know what? I don't know. Because in all of us, there's this wanting of belonging, right? Have you ever been told like, hey, do you know this book? Have you heard of this person? And you're like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, even though you might not.
And you might not, but you want them to kind of go down that story hole, even though you don't want to. So what you're actually trying to do is you're trying to make this person feel like, yeah, what you research and what you know and what the story or the example that you're using is relevant, right? But so many of us are doing things in service of supporting other people without realizing that we're actually sometimes eroding the fabric, because that example might not be relevant anymore, and I might not understand. It might go right over our head, and that will create more fracturing and disconnect than if I just led with honesty, which is, no, I don't, but I'm willing to listen. Can you give me a little bit of context and then tell me this relevant story? You know what I mean? It's like by just constantly asking yourself, where's the truth and how am I a steward of it? How am I not afraid of it? How am I leaning into it versus leaning away from it? How can you truly lead with your truth? And if you are selling something you don't believe in, it doesn't truly serve other people, and you are the snake oil salesman. You are the person you are worried that you think that they think you are, and you got to stop doing it. You got to stop doing it. You could sell anything under the sun. There's so many amazing products. So if you truly believe in what you're selling, by all means, you're a beautiful human being, no matter what you sell in some way. But if you don't, please consider the honesty of everything that you're doing. Lead with honesty, lead with understanding their perspective, lead with you truly being in your center, your core, and a kind of a honest, enlightened being, and then remove all the hacks. You can learn them, and I think it's important for you to learn them because I think that's part of the craft of you putting in your 10,000 hours. Yeah, but that's what I would say.
Cool, man. Love it. Lots of depth there. Lots of passion, which is very typical for you, of course. Cool, man. So you kind of mentioned it earlier, but if someone does want to take the next steps with you, is there anything that they can go to take next steps with you? And if not, if you just want to offer, hey, reach out to me for any questions, where can they go to find you?
The comments below is where I want them to find me. You tag me. I'm sure I'm going to be tagged in here somewhere. If you want to find whatever you want to find about me, anything I do, the school or whatever I run, I'm sure it's all where you need to find it. So I have nothing to sell. I have nothing that I need to compel you to do. Cause I know, here's why, cause I know I'm compelling. I know that whoever watched it all the way to here is going to go check it out. And I don't need to tell you where it is because you know where it is. And that's the beautiful thing. Trust that the people who are looking for you will find you as long as you have the right systems in place. I mean, the other day we spoke about like, hey, where's your phone number on your website? And you're like, the phone number is all the way in like a hidden place. And I'm like, yeah, right. That was the first thing. People don't necessarily know what you do. They don't necessarily know what you offer. And sometimes the most obvious thing is like, hey, put your phone number like more in a more obvious space. Is just the easiest way to support the biggest things. People are more simple. We are more simple than we'd like to think.
And we like to complicate things. We just straight up.
Yes, and then when we give ourselves anxiety and stress and problems when we complicate these things, we don't have to.
Cool. Very cool. So to recap the episode, on this episode of the Ultimate Closer Show, we had the privilege to dig into some sales theories and philosophies, lots of philosophies, as well as actionable strategies, tips, and techniques here with Marc Coppola. And more specifically, we talked about what do you actually sell, right? And how to figure that out by asking yourself why. The 3 wins that you need to be considering. So the win for yourself, the win for the person you're speaking to, and the win for others on a grander scale, the planet. How you show up for the client, selling based off of service, not off just analytics and pricing and such, because the fact is you're going to get beat, right? Someone might have a better deal or something of the kind. How the best communication is through storytelling, and that by storytelling, you don't convince people, you compel them. And then some other things we talked about, of course, was how to open people's minds. And I love that topic, and how we talked about, to do that, you need to start by having common ground and a genuine, true way of seeking to understand. So this has been a really, really good episode. And, sales is an epic journey, guys. It's infinitely more difficult without a guide, as I've said before, to show you the potholes to avoid and the paths to excellence. So if you're on your sales journey and you realize that you do not want to walk it alone, then let me be your guide. You know where to find me, just like Marc said, right? If I have compelled you, I know you will find me. And so once again, Marc, thank you so much for being on the show. And I wish everyone an ultimate closure day.
Have a good one.